This episode is brought to you by Hill's Pet Nutrition. Every shelter pet deserves a second chance, and you're making it possible for thousands of them every day. Because when you feed your pet Hill's, you help feed a shelter pet, which helps make them healthy, happy, and more adoptable, changing their life forever. So they can change yours. Over 14 million shelter pets fed and adopted. Science did that. Visit hillspet.com/podcast to learn more.
Today on CityCast Madison. There's some news circulating around the Madison library scene. Keyword, director. The Madison Public Library and Madison Mayor have officially selected a new director, Tana Elias. Elias will be new to the role, but she's got 3 decades of experience in our library specifically, and a ton of ideas on how to usher in its new chapter. We sat down with Tana to learn about her plans for the job and what's next for the library. It's Tuesday, April 30th. I'm Bianca Martin, and here's what Madison's talking about. Tana, hello.
Hello.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
On your new gig.
Thank you so much. It's wonderful to be here today and wonderful to almost be in the new job.
Yes. And so what do you most want to do with the library in the next year?
Well, I would say my top priority for the library in the next year, as you know, the city is looking at a $27 million deficit. So my top priority really is to figure that out and see what that looks like for the library. So we are working with the city on, following all of the budget request guidance that we're getting. And, there's a lot of work ahead of us in the next few months to figure out what that means for the library.
I attended a city council meeting recently, and it was actually the one that was marking Greg Michaels, and then they also had to talk about the budget. It's a pretty big moment for the city, and, there's going to be either need for a referendum or some serious cuts. So I imagine that's a lot on your plate to hold both and balance at once, both possibilities.
That's right. So, what we're doing right now is running a variety of different scenarios and seeing what they cost. And I think what we hear from people who use the libraries is that they love all of the services. So when we get to the point where we have to rank them, right, which we might have to do in this budget cycle, it will really require a lot of community feedback and input.
We've talked to y'all a number of times on the show, and what your library card can do for you is one of the most popular conversations we've had. And we've had hundreds of conversations. A lot of folks, if you haven't listened to that, we'll definitely throw that conversation into the show notes, because you can get all kinds of services. You guys have business incubators, and, if you want to start a podcast, you can head to the library. I just saw recently, if you want to play Ultimate Frisbee, you can head to the library. Like, the list goes on and on. And you guys are a huge standout. You've gotten national awards for the work that you're doing. What are your biggest dreams for the Madison Public Library system stepping into this role?
I think you highlighted all of the wonderful things that you can do with a free library card. And the library card is free to residents, but not fully free because, of course, it's taxpayer funded. But, there are so many different things that you can do at the library. You can teach your child to read. You can, as you said, check out a disc golf kit or a variety of different unique things like a bee cycle. But I feel like libraries are one of the last public places where people can go just to meet people that are different from them in this climate, especially. It's really important to have a place that is free and open and welcoming to everyone, that's safe and comfortable, that has a variety of different resources that people need for every stage and every interest of their lives. And also really connect with other people in the community. When you hear about people feeling isolated or the epidemic of loneliness or people not meeting people who are different than them or have different political or many other kinds of views than them. Like, the library is a wonderful place to do that. And so I think, one of the things that I'm most looking forward to in this role is to provide that space for people, to continue to provide that place for Madison residents and expand, the services that we can and be really good stewards of all of the resources that we have.
Hearing that you get the positive tingly feels, and you hear all of the work that you all are doing. Also, it's just a large responsibility talking about being the stewards. I mean, a lot of folks come to y'all who have pretty serious social needs. Is there any further infrastructure you guys would be looking to build out in terms of addressing some of the social needs that Madison faces?
Yeah, it's definitely a partnership. We just went through a process where we selected new strategic priorities for the next 5 years. And those are engaging in accessible services. So providing all of the basic things that people expect from libraries, collections and computers and so on. Community partnerships, which really gets to your point. We can't do all of that alone. We really need to work with as many community partners as possible and best use all of our resources collectively. We also have nourishing spaces as a strategic priority. So making sure that those spaces feel comfortable and welcoming and are kept clean and, up to date for everybody who comes into our spaces. And then staff development. A lot of the work that our frontline staff do is with people who have maybe a lot of challenges or have suffered a lot of things in their lives, and they're coming to the library looking for help, connections to resources, help with the computers, maybe just a safe place to be. And so it's, I think, challenging for some of our staff because it's challenging for some of those patrons, right? And so making sure that our staff feel that they have all of the training and the support and the development necessary to do their jobs best and to serve our patrons best is really one of the priorities as well. Does that answer your question?
Oh, it absolutely does. And, you're certainly someone to talk on that. You are a veteran in our library system here. Speaking about staff and us stepping into the leadership role, can we talk about what originally drew you to working for the library?
So I moved to Madison 32 years ago to attend library school at UW-Madison. Within a year, I had a library page job at Madison Public Library, and that consisted of shelving the books and checking books out for people. After I got my library degree from UW-Madison, I worked as a librarian at the Meadow Ridge Library for 5 years. And during that time, I subbed at the other libraries because I was only part-time. So I've really worked at all of our libraries with the exception of Alicia Ashman that wasn't open at the time. And I've worked in most of the departments of the library, kind of the internal departments, with the exception of maintenance and our technical services department. So I really have worked in a lot of the roles that I'll be supporting staff. So I kind of know the work, and I definitely know all the people and the connections, not to say that there isn't a lot more to learn.
Yeah, and I just want to give a shout out to that Master of Library and Information Studies at UW-Madison. That is an incredible program, and I didn't know the depths of how well regarded it was until I attended UW and know some great people that came out of there. You're local as heck.
I am.
You've been on the ground. You got to love that. This was a national search, and you've got real Madison roots. How do you think that will, serve you in this role?
I think particularly when thinking about the budget, the budget situation that we just talked about, it's helpful that I can jump in and have a lot of the background in the context. I've worked at the majority of the libraries in our system, so I know where they are. I know a lot of the staff. I know a lot of the connections that we have through the Dane County Library Service and the South Central Library Service. So for those listeners who don't know, in addition to being a city agency, we also work very closely with the South Central Library System, which connects public libraries in a 7-county area. And so we work with them closely on things like our delivery service and our public computing services. So we're very integrated both into the South Central Library System and the city of Madison. And so I think knowing that and not having to have a really long get to know you series of months as you learn all of that as a new person coming in would, I think will really help me just kind of get started faster.
Yeah, you can hit the ground running because you've been running stuff.
Families have a lot going on. Let Ollie help manage the mental load with new cognitive help supplements for everyone 4 and up, like delicious Lolly Focus Pops or Lolly Mellow Pops for kids. And for parents, try 3 new Brainy Chews to help you focus, chill out, or get energized. Find these cognitive health buddies for the whole fam at ollie.com. That's OLLY.com. These statements have not been evaluated by the Food and Drug Administration. This product is not intended to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent any disease.
What do you see as the library's biggest challenges? Is it the budget that's coming up?
I would say short term, it's the budget. I think longer term, it is maybe a growing mistrust of government in particular, government agencies. I've seen national studies that talk about this. And so I think we walk that fine line between being a government service and being a trusted service for many people. Right now, 42% of Madisonians have library cards. But our challenge is that 58% don't have library cards. So one of our big challenges is really like letting people who don't already use the libraries know about what the libraries have to offer and inviting them into our spaces and inviting them into using our services. The other challenge really is going back to that budget situation of making sure that we are competitive with all the other institutions or services that, are competing for people's time. So why would you use the library versus downloading something that you pay for example? Obviously, it's free through the library and you've already paid for it in a sense. But really just letting all the people who aren't using libraries now know that the library is a place for them, know what services we have to offer. And that is work that never ends. You're constantly letting new people know about the library services, about new library services, about what's relevant to them. And the point is really to try to catch them at the time when they're most interested or have a need.
Something that stands out to me when I was at that city council meeting, Alderman Sabrina Madison spoke about how she really wanted to understand how the library system worked and ended up being able to have her business just hyper supported by the library. And I really hear you about the fact that you all want more people to know what you're doing, because you said there are a lot of people who don't take advantage of what you're doing. I wasn't living in Madison for a second, and I looked and I saw Rob Dees in a photo with Michelle Obama because of the recognition that you all were getting for the amazing work. The Central Library building is just incredible. You guys also include, climate change into your planning, and I love the idea of nourishing spaces. You have a lot on your plate, and it sounds like you all are looking to maybe narrow in on where you can be most effective.
I think that's true. And I would say, in addition to that, one area that I feel we're particularly poised to do well in is early literacy. I think we've all heard about some of the challenges that are faced by children in Wisconsin, children in the MMSD school district. We are 9 buildings full of books, and we have dedicated children's services librarians. It feels like we could be doing more in this space. And so that is something that I'll be pursuing going into this role.
Oh my gosh, my heart is aflutter. I just remember writing my name totally horribly as a little girl at Baraboo Public Library. In terms of, addressing educational disparities, that's the word. The word is getting in earlier. Don't come when someone's in high school. You should be looking at these earlier phases. So that's really exciting. Are there any specific programming or anything that y'all are looking into right now in that strategic goal?
Looking at the new focus on the science of reading, those are things that we'll be exploring more, but there are many, many programs that we're already doing. We have one program where we're delivering books directly to daycare providers and then working with them on getting families signed up for library cards, for example. We have another program that used to be called Parents as First Teachers. I think it has a new name. And that's where we worked with public health nurses to get pregnant young women to understand the value of reading. And then they would get a series of free books and, have events that they could go to learn a little more about how they are valuable partners in their child's early literacy skills and how early literacy really does make such a huge difference in a child's life. Sometimes that can feel very intimidating to parents, especially if they don't come from a background that really focused on education or they're not strong readers themselves. And so we have a variety of different programs aimed at really casually modeling some of these services for parents and making them understand it doesn't have to look perfect. You don't have to read your child Shakespeare. It's really just highlighting words and letters on the back of a cereal box, or asking your child questions and getting them kind of engaged in learning at whatever stage they're at. So I think there's a lot of work we're already doing in this area. We have story times in all of our libraries for parents to connect with each other, as well as with our youth services librarians and all of the materials in our libraries. But I do feel like there's the potential for us to work more directly with schools and have a little more of a focused effort on supporting the schools in their work to support children and families in those critical first years.
Yeah. And we had this crucible, this moment with the pandemic for the schools when virtual learning came forward. And I wanted to ask you about how you think about the library's work as the world changes, and there's so much more virtual options for things, and looking at digital services is key and critical. How do you think the library will change as the world changes? Like, will there be more virtual holdings, or are people craving more in-person experiences like community classes?
Yeah, I would say it's a mix of both. I would say we've seen our use. Obviously, we saw it drop during COVID, even though we had, curbside checkout and some of the other programs. We switched to doing a lot more virtual programs. I would say there's kind of a mixed interest in both coming back in person. We've definitely seen a big increase in in-person programming in the last year as compared to like the first or second year after the pandemic and after we reopened. And then there are other people who really want to have virtual meetings or virtual program offerings. I would say the one thing that has been a steady increase and really increased much more quickly during COVID is the use of our online collections. So currently we check out about 2.3 million physical items in our libraries every year, but we also check out 700,000 online books and materials. And that is just since last year. That's about a 20% increase. And since 2019, it's been about a 50% increase.
Wow.
Our Madison Public Library Foundation, when we closed, gave us additional money so that people could learn how to check out those materials and then check them out when our buildings were closed in those first initial weeks. And then we've really seen like a huge increase in use in that area. So I definitely think our service model will change. And I think it continues to change. I remember when libraries, and this will date me, but I remember when libraries took on public access to the internet. That changed libraries so dramatically. We're still kind of navigating that change. And then when the Kindle came along and everybody could, buy a $80 device and download things directly, that changed our service model. And so we're constantly looking ahead, both at, larger community trends and local community trends, and trying to think about the best way to provide the service with the budget we have.
Yeah. Openness to innovation is huge. Willingness to be dynamic. And, we started out the conversation. We talked briefly about Greg Michaels, the past director. And I'm curious, is there anything that you might want to continue from his tenure, or something that you're going to hold strong and carry on? And then after that, anything you might want to change? Is there anything like, this is my moment or our moment to take a shift?
Yeah, that's a great question. I worked really closely with Greg a lot. And, I think what we saw during his tenure is really much more engagement in the community. He was open to going to events and meeting people and connecting our frontline staff and our managers to a variety of community partners. He was our biggest cheerleader. And so that is something that, I helped him in the marketing department and public relations. And that's something that, now I'll be on the opposite side of that, where I'm the one going out and doing the cheerleading. So I really would like to continue the amazing work that he did in that arena. And I think in terms of change, maybe kind of going back to that focus of, it's a wonderful thing. And we'd love to be out there in the community. But again, kind of highlighting like big initiatives that we can really move forward if we're doing many, many different things and meeting many, many different community needs. We maybe can't do all of those as well. So maybe it's focusing a little more or coming up with priorities of like, how much can we support each community organization that we work with? How much can we do a particular service? I think people in Madison would be happy if we opened 15 more libraries, if we had a library in every neighborhood. Is there a way to do that? And maybe it's online, right? Or maybe it's working with other organizations to have mini libraries. Like, I'm not really sure, but I think that's the kind of big question that's coming, is how can we serve everybody at an appropriate level? And then, of course, within the budget constraints that we have.
One of my favorite things to talk about the library is that y'all threw the best party I have ever attended, which was Bookless.
Yeah.
When we were creating the new central library, y'all opened it up. You had craft cocktail bartenders and art museums and a biblioteca, discoteca downstairs. Just an incredible, incredible event. And people be like, the library threw the best party you've ever attended? Yes. That's not me blowing smoke. Like, it was actually incredible. And I cannot wait for the next one. I'm just dropping that out there. Hopefully y'all will throw another big party. But, before we go, what's something that you think most people are surprised to learn about the library here in Madison?
I would say that is different for every person. And I say that because I think a lot of people think of libraries as books, or they think about the library service that they use. But there are so many different special collections and neat little spaces in our libraries, and many, many different programs. And I feel like the library is really for everyone, but nobody sees the whole picture, if that makes sense.
Truly.
You know about the services or the programs or the things that you use, but you don't know about the other things. And maybe that's not the right answer or the best answer, but I would say, helping people.
I've learned so much talking to y'all. You can make a podcast over here, or you can go and research your family's ancestry. Like, it really spans the gamut. You're talking about early literacy. Like, I kind of want to keep talking to you for another 35 minutes.
Happy to. And I think to your point about the Bookless event, in addition to all of the wonderful things that we do to help people, live better lives, really, whatever that looks like to individuals in our community, is the library is a place of joy and connection. You can connect with people at a program where you learn how to weave baskets, or you learn how to knit with friends, or you have a book discussion club. You can, connect over the joy of going to an event like Bookless or a Wisconsin Book Festival event. And then you can just connect to others by being in the same space. And I feel like that's a big, important thing that libraries provide to our communities, is that joy and connection.
Tana, thank you so much for taking the time to come on CityCast Madison. We're super excited for you to be at the helm, and good luck.
Thank you. And I invite everybody, come to the library and get a library card.
That's Tana Elias, current digital services and marketing manager at Madison Public Library. She's set to become the new library director on May 12th, pending Library Board and Common Council formal approval. That's all for today here on CityCast Madison. I'm Bianca Martin. If you enjoyed the show, why not share this episode with your most bookish friend? We'll be back tomorrow morning with more stories from around the city. Until then, go dive in a good book.